come for the thrills, telling truths that I hope you won't find any black pills. Right beneath the surface, pull back the propaganda veil, find true freedom and justice. It's red, right, and real.
And we are here. I am Bella D'Angelo, formerly the Bella D'Angelo Show, partnered with AK Kamar on Red, Right, and Real. AK, how are you this evening?
You know what? I'm doing fantastic. Today, I think the high, at least up here in Forest Lake, is 55 degrees. We got a lot of great stuff to talk about. Make sure if you're watching this stream, no matter where you're watching it, that you like it. If you're not following or subscribed to the show, whether it's on Rumble or if it's on YouTube or on Facebook or on X, make sure to do that. And then most importantly, hit the share button. We're going to be talking about Trump's congressional joint address. We're going to talk about some funny stuff, the memeing of Vice President J.D. Vance, which is hilarious. And then also let's talk a little bit about this tariff thing, because it sounds like some people are losing their minds. So we're going to kind of dive into that and a few other topics if we have time for it. But Bella, I know that one of the things that I found most fascinating about our relationship as we've joined together, I've been married for 20 years. Okay.
You're going to bring up online dating.
I am. I've never.
Perfect. Because
I've
I have
the online dating thing. And I'm so curious about your online dating. It's fascinating to me.
It is not fascinating. It's funny because, so I ran and I swim laps at night. And I don't have much of a life, believe it or not. I really don't. I work. And then I have this beautiful horse that I ride. And AK, the chiropractor that works on Hottie, is a huge conservative, huge Trumpster. And he wants me to play video. So next week, we'll put a little clip up of me on her. She's an amazing, gentle giant. So I work, I ride, and I swim. So I told you this story, and I can't share everything that this individual said, but sometimes my hair hurts. That's as much as it annoys me to try and do this online dating thing. So I get this. I honestly try because I would like to meet somebody, okay? And I don't know how to go about it anymore because I can't even hardly make like friends. And, for anybody that knows, I took care of my mom for a very long time. And, I'm trying to start over and meet people anyway. So I'm going to shorten this thing up so that we can get to our political chat. But so I get this message back from this individual, and he says, you work, you have a horse, and you have a podcast. How do you have room for a man? And I'm thinking, so I messaged him back and I said, what do you want? An unemployed dependent? I mean, right? What do you want? Someone with no life, you don't work, and you're going to be dependent. So he doesn't get it. He doesn't read between the lines. So then I said, well, did you find my podcast? I thought I would figure out if he knew how to operate a computer or not, or be insightful enough to go to Spotify or something. And he says, no, you can tell me all about it when we're in person. I'm thinking, this low hanging turd can't even take time to do some legwork. Who is this woman? Right? AK, am I not correct?
Yeah. I mean, listen, to say we can only get to know each other in person. I would say, again, I've never done online dating. I met my wife in 2003. We were married by 2004. The internet existed, but other than AOL online chat, Facebook didn't exist. None of that existed. It's okay, let's just have a conversation. But to me, it's a red flag if someone's like, oh, I don't want to get to know you until I see you in person, that either A, they're going to try and kidnap you, or B, they're not who they're presenting themselves as.
Trust me. So then I tried to make it a little bit easy for him. And I said, why don't you just Google me? Because you probably won't want to meet me after you've Googled me. Okay. So this Neanderthal knuckle dragging thug messages me back and says, oh, after Googling you, I'd like to get a case of beer for the date. Okay. Red flag. Case of beer. And then
whole case, not like a six pack. dang. He's like, Bella looks like she can do some work.
I don't even drink beer. I don't even like more than 2 glasses of wine. So then he explicitly says that by the end of the evening, he's going to be grabbing my hair, slapping me, and I won't even say the rest of it. I tried telling my hairdresser yesterday, and I was so uncomfortable even telling her. So I just want to put it out there. First of all, a little couple of hints, housekeeping hints to dudes. If you are going to do online dating, do not do the shirtless pose in the bathroom next to the toilet. AK, is that where would be your choice of your profile pic?
No, but B, okay. Okay. This is what okay, you and I we're not like crazily far apart in age, okay? But I'm just imagining that if your dating profile set for guys that are my age or older, that seems like a very immature thing to do, right? I
They
mean,
all do it. They all
even
do
like
it.
dudes like 50, mid 50s still doing
Okay,
it.
I have no problem saying that I am 58 years old, and 50-year-old plus men are taking body shots in the bathroom next to the toilet, urinal, everything, or the other one, the eye drippy, I want to love all over you couch pick on the like love
That
rug.
is hilarious. That
No,
is
it's
hilarious. I love it. I love it. And honestly, Bella, the reason why I like this dynamic, it's so interesting, it's so fascinating, is for people that are new to the show. Yes, I know we're talking about Bella's dating life, but we want to have like a real perspective on politics, news, and culture. Both of us are huge Trump supporters. Both of us believe that politics is so integral to having a good society and a good country, but we're also normal people. So that's, for those of you that are new to this is Bella and I getting to know each other better. I mean, this is just an amazing dynamic. Now,
well,
for the show today, Bella, I wanted you to just like, the first topic is there was this joint address, right?
yes.
To the United States. And technically, people say, oh, it's a State of the Union, but I guess technically there's a difference between a State of the Union and a joint session of Congress. So not to like try and sound like snobby or snooty or anything like that, but technically this was a joint address to Congress. So that means that both chambers were invited, but it's mostly the House. As you saw kind of in the background, you had Vice President J.D. Vance behind President Trump. You had Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. And so this address happened. So here's my question to you. One, did you watch it? And two, what was like your initial takeaway from what you heard President Trump talk about?
The boss is back. He is back with a full understanding of who and what he's up against and how he's going to tackle and win. He learned from the 4 years not being in office just how big the establishment and the swamp is and how to come in with all guns loaded and prepared to fight and win. He wants to take this country and turn it around. And I've said this on the show. I've said this to AK. I've said this to multiple people. He is redefining what our government and how our government is going to operate. And finally, we have a businessman, and I'm sorry, Leslie Marshall, the Democrat on Fox News, who claims that you can't have business people running the government. That has been one of the biggest fundamental problems that has happened with our government, is by running it by people that, let's just say we've learned through Doge, the money laundering that has bankrupted this country. And all I can say is when you and I talked and we talked about this speech, it was like Trump is on top and he is taking no prisoners. And it shows us also, the left, how and why they are losing.
Yeah. And to that point, there was, we're talking like 4 minutes into President Trump's address to Congress. Democrats, they did this whole protest thing. Like, it was all pre-planned. They said, certain members of Congress weren't going to attend. Other ones said beforehand they were going to, walk out. Other ones said, we're going to show up and we're going to have our stupid little signs or whatever. But out of all the things that were done, to me, one of the most disrespectful came from a congressman that's from the Houston area. I don't know what it is about Houston. There's maybe something in the water there or whatever. But you have Congressman Al Green, and I want to play this clip of his just utter disrespect, because I think this matters, right? I think when the American people see members of Congress being so disrespectful in contrast to relative respect that was shown towards President Biden, who, by the way, lied every time he got up there. But I just want people to watch this for those of you that haven't had a chance to see it. But this is Representative Al Green, again, representing kind of the same area, not literally the same because different congressional districts, as Jasmine Crockett, everyone's new favorite, in your face, I'm black, I'm proud, I'm loud, congressperson. But let's play this clip here. Can you hear this?
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Get him out of there. Get him shaking his cane. Man, I mean, I get it. People still use canes today, but it's stupid.
I think it was Greg Gutfeld that said that his ponytail was a fire hazard.
But yeah, so showing
You didn't
that.
hear that, did you?
No, something about his fire. What did you say? His
I said I think
ponytail's a fire
it was
hazard?
Greg Gutfeld that said his ponytail was like.
Listen, there was probably a lot of oil and grease up in that bad boy. Let's be for real, like 100%. Like, remember that? What is it? Coming to America? Did you ever watch that? I mean,
Yes, I did.
Okay, fair. Okay, I mean, hey, it's not everyone's cup of tea. The Soul Glow commercial, when they like sit up and there's the grease stains on the back. Yeah, that's what Al Green's hair looks like, man. That thing is a greasy. All right, so
do you have the clip of when Nancy is practically swallowing her dentures and she does some weird up and down movement, which I can't. Here's what I mean. They have reached a level of disrespect, and it's to the point where people are turned off. People don't want to hear and listen and see it anymore. And they didn't get the message. We made it clear what we wanted in November when we elected him. And we're tired of all this batshit craziness. We're tired of all of this in your face when, they sat and lectured us about how the border was closed and the economy was fine, as, we can't afford our groceries. And then a week into office, they turn around and say, oh, but day one, he was supposed to fix it. But the entire 4 years that we're drowning in debt and can't afford to even live. And it's working against them, and they are not going to be in power anytime soon. They've lost their identity, and they're acting like just absolutely horribly spoiled children.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I was glad to see that the House voted to censure Al Green, because again, I think ultimately when you decide to take this step, and you're going to just be like, yeah, I don't care, I'll completely interrupt what is happening here, then yeah, I think you have to have consequences. So I'm glad to see that happened. But you asked me if I had seen the clip of Nancy Pelosi, and so here's a clip that I posted to my X account. And then I think it's funny because I also want you to be able to read what I posted, because I've got some good zingers. For those of you that don't follow me on X, you should definitely go and do that, because I say hilarious things. At least that's what people tell me. So here's what I put. Nancy Pelosi is nervous because Trump just doxed her as the 360-year-old Social Security recipient. Her days are numbered. Breaking. The FBI has initiated a raid on her home looking for her immortal portrait. So,
Yeah, what is this?
dude, I have no idea. Like it will play one more time so people, it's like, what are you doing there, lady? Because again,
Bill in the diapers.
again,
You remember when she ripped
go ahead.
up the paper in the initial one? The thing is their rage is so they just can't hide it. They can't control it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like the truth of the matter is, like, whether you're talking about Nancy Pelosi or Al Green or whomever doing their little defiant acts, I get it. Republicans have done certain things that, they object, right? Lone Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, both Congress people, during Biden's term said, whatever, I think they said you lie or something. And then there was the guy back from Obama years that said you lie. But it's like, that was like a one-time thing. Al Green stood up multiple times and was shaking stuff. Ripping up the speech was like in the direct camera shot behind President Trump, right? Like they don't just do like a one action. Like they're trying to derail and end things. And, thankfully, because President Trump and Mike Johnson, like, mad respect to him, sometimes it feels like, Mike Johnson has been kind of all over the place, but for him to stand up and get him out of there was phenomenal. But yeah, listen, America saw how the Democrats act like petulant children. And, the most important thing, again, to just kind of put a point on this issue is you got to ask, well, how did the American people perceive that? Did the American people say, that was a good look. I really do support, these Democrats acting this way. And so to be able to answer that question, you got to go and ask, well, what did the people say? What did the people think when, asked a quick poll? According to CBS, YouGov, and a CNN poll, viewers of Trump's address to Congress found majority approval. All right. So CBS said that of total viewers, 56% were Republican, 27% were independent, and 17% were Democrat. Of those from CBS, YouGov, their poll, 76% approved of President Trump's address, only 23% disapproved. So wildly high approval. And then from CNN, 69% approved or had a positive view of his speech. 31% had a negative. So there's your proof, right? Right there says it all. The American people, by and large, approved of President Trump's address. And by them approving of his address, that means that they disapproved of the Democrats' action. So listen, I want Democrats to build themselves into a deep, dark pit and hole. I personally think that the Democrats have completely embedded themselves with Marxist ideology. I'm not one of these people that says like, hopefully the Democrats come back to a more realistic. I'm like, no, hopefully not. I would love to have like 3 Republican parties. We can have like the libertarian, the populist, and like the conservative. And, we can, go back and forth on certain things. But yeah, I think the Democrat Party, they've lost themselves in the sauce, and I hope they stay lost for a long time so we can actually get this country back to a place where we're working and it's working for a large majority of Americans. But yeah, again, just ultimately, this just shows that the Democrats and their very petulant acts were not something that the average American approved of. So real quick, just want to say Johnny messaged and said and commented. And by the way, you can comment no matter where you're watching this, and it will show up on our side, and we'll go through some of your comments. Said, thanks for the birthday wishes. Meant a lot to me. Yes, I try and tell people happy birthday whenever I see it. If I'm on X, if I'm on Facebook, especially people that follow me, of course. So happy birthday, belated birthday to Johnny. So let me ask you,
By the way, Johnny, you still owe me birthday dinner and a drink. Just saying, you've been threatening for like years.
Okay. Now let me ask you, Bella, When it
Yes.
to the joint address, did you get a chance to man on the street anyone? I know you're not like from an official capacity, but for our viewers, Bella likes to frequent McDonald's drive-thru for their ice cold, refreshing, and crispy Diet Cokes. Did you have a chance to talk to anyone and ask the working class people if any of them A, watched the joint address, or B, what they thought?
Yeah. By the way, so you talk about inflation. The best part about McDonald's Diet Cokes were they were $1 forever. And do you know it's like $4.20 something for 2 Diet Cokes at McDonald's these days?
Say what?
Yeah, and I had one of these moments this morning where I'm like, suddenly I'm adding up the math and I'm realizing like I could be paying a mortgage payment maybe for what I'm paying for my McDonald's. But that was where I got so much of my enthusiasm for the election was that when you're talking to people that are living on an hourly wage, the young people that are going out and getting their apartment, their secondary, they're looking at college and moving out of their parents' home. That was some of the biggest fears and frustrations. And one of the most amazing things, and I've shared this, but I mean, individuals that were not even old enough to vote still knew that they wanted to vote for Trump. There wasn't one that said that they were voting for Kamala. And asking about the speech, they told so many people said the same thing. It gives us hope. We know he's going to fight and things are going to change. And what complete and utter disgust. Just like when that young girl at Kohl's department store talked about how Kamala went on that podcast.
Call her daddy.
Call her daddy, the sex podcast. I mean, they, when you talk about lost their way and when will they come into power, the hill that they're choosing to die on and stand on, and even Minnesota, you went to the maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, the rally to try and to win the bill that was going to ban boys in women's sports. Now, why in God's name the Democrat Party is demanding to stand on that bill, and also the immigration. I do not understand it, and I don't know what it's going to take, because it is absolutely detrimental to, first of all, and I don't want to go down the wrong, I'll hold that rant. You asked me, it was man on the street. Overwhelming. I do have control. I can slow and come back. Overwhelming support, and from all of the young and all of the hourly and hardworking blue collar people, because we have faith and restored optimism for the future.
No, and that's like, listen, for again our viewers, this is what's so fascinating about this dynamic with Bella and myself, is that she loves to go and talk to people and ask them like what they think about what's happening in the political realm. And I think that is fascinating. Myself, obviously politics is a huge part of who I am from a paid perspective, right? I do make some money on my different social media platforms because I'm monetized. From just like a volunteer perspective, I'm the Republican National Committee man from the state of Minnesota. And so it allows me to travel a lot. Like just this last weekend, just yesterday, I should say, my own local Republican Party unit, we call them BPOUs here in Minnesota. We had our local convention. And so I'm a delegate there. And so I don't, though, go and talk to people like man on the street. I don't do it. I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it, but it's just I don't know. It's not a vibe for me, but for Bella, it is. And so it's always fascinating. Now, you mentioned this rally that took place. So Riley Gaines came to Minnesota. There was a rally this last Monday, and basically there was a bill that was going to be voted on, House File 12, that would make the practice of allowing biological males to compete against biological females in Minnesota, it would end that practice. Because as people who have a brain and discernment and aren't dyed-in-the-wool leftists and ideologically driven, recognize biological males have advantages over biological females in a lot of different physical sports. So Riley Gaines came to Minnesota. She spoke. There was a whole host of other speakers, former State auditor candidate Ryan Wilson spoke. You had current Speaker of the House of Minnesota, Lisa Damath. She spoke. Current State Senator Julia Coleman spoke. Some other amazing people. There was this like truly impressive 13-year-old girl. I think she's 12, 13, or 14. I think she was in 7th or 8th grade. She got up there and she crushed it. And she was just saying that in Minnesota, yeah, she has to compete against biological boys at her age, and that it takes away from her ability to like actually compete and to win, because there's just such big differences between biological males and females. And so, of course, as you can imagine, there was hopes. Like, people crossed their fingers and said, if we can get literally one Democrat in the Minnesota State House to cross over and vote with all of the Republicans, 67 of them, we could get to 68 votes. It would pass the House, go on to the Senate. Maybe it would pass or fail. Again, if you just had 2 in that case come over to the Republicans, to the Republican side, and then go to the governor's office, which, again, if he passed or signed off on it, which I don't think he ever would, because it's like his one issue. But none of that happened, because not one single Democrat crossed the line to say, I support women's rights. So the irony there is just hilarious, right? Because isn't it Democrats that always talk about women's rights this, women's rights that? But when it comes to privacy, when it comes to like lowering the risk of severe injuries, because there's a lot of high school girls that are literally being harmed. There's a gal that got a huge spike to her head during a game, and it like gave her a brain injury. There was another gal that I think there was a biological male playing basketball and checked her and like literally gave her brain damage. So it's like all of these things are happening, but here in Minnesota, true to the Democrats, they stood by their ideology. They did not stand up for women. They did not stand up for girls. And that bill died on the floor because there wasn't enough votes to be able to pass it. But, these are the things that I agree with you, Bella. Average, everyday Minnesotans, the more that we can amplify that this is happening, this is occurring, the more that Minnesotans are going to say, yeah, that's goofy. Because it's an 80-20 issue, okay? When polled, 80% of Americans, even in Minnesota, think that biological males should not be competing against biological females. It's an 80-20 issue, but Democrats are like in Minnesota 100% in support of allowing that to continue. Not to mention, again, like having a fully intact male, even if it's a teenage boy that hasn't had any surgery to remove the bits and parts, being in a female locker room. Again, all these crazy nonsense, but I think people, they're seeing through it. I hope Democrats continue to die on that hill. I want to ask you, kind of changing positions here a little bit, unless you have
one quick thing I want to add. Yeah, one thing I want to add. So when you think of all of the issues that they could grab onto to highlight and focus just how radical they have become, think about this, listeners. Think about this. They are deciding to fight for, and here's the thing, even if a boy gets the physical changes to his body, it does not change the fact that he's still a boy with now female parts surgically put on that body. Now, I want to share something else, because I had a woman on this show back in 2020 talking about the effects and the mental illness that happens from this. And the dangerous thing is, it's bad enough what we did to our kids during COVID, but the damage that is happening by these abusive parents that are allowing, and I fully believe a lot of this is going to be seen kind of like a fad, because it's been so politicized and brought to the forefront, just like when you have copycat school shootings, because it becomes something of a fad. It's cool. It's something hip to do. It's not. It's not when you mutilate your body for a fad and then wake up one day when you're in your late 30s with severe depression and you have to try and reverse it all. And it is sick and twisted. And it just shows how sick and twisted the Democrat Party has become. And I'll say this again, it's very unfortunate that when Bruce Jenner, I don't know why he decided to go and do it, but Bruce is still Bruce with a unit and fake boobs. Okay.
Hey, listen, at the end of that, I agree with you, Bella. We talk about what the long-term consequences are going to be. There's studies that are now coming out that show, because the lie that was sold, so let's frame this. The lie that originally was sold is that if you did not surgically or chemically basically support, validate, affirm a child suffering with body dysmorphia or trans identity disorder, that you were then basically sentencing them to die. They talk about the suicidal ideation rates for these young trans youth, right? That's what they would talk about. Now the studies are coming out to show that that's complete garbage. That when you affirm medically or chemically and you follow then that child throughout time, that no, their ideation rates actually increase, went up even higher. It's just that the initial study was looking at too small of a sample over too small of a period. The other study that's been out there now for a couple of years that I've referenced, people that have seen me speak in person, is that if you actually don't intervene, right, with any surgical or chemical interventions, and a child is suffering again, and they view themselves as trans, if you don't intervene with chemical or surgical interventions, that 90% of them will desist by the time they're an adult. Again, if you don't intervene,
they'll come to their bloody ass senses.
Versus you flip it, if you intervene in early adulthood, it's almost flipped. If you intervene, they won't desist. But then the second question is, well, are they happy beyond that? And that's what the new studies are coming out to show. No. They're committing rates of suicide at very high rates after receiving medical and chemical interventions. And why? Because it's not like, oh, you can reverse it. That was the other lie that was told, that you could just simply reverse, get off of testosterone if you're a female, or get off of estrogen if you're a male, and that your body will go back. No, actually, no, not true. Some people, yes, but for a lot of people, no. And so at the end of that process, you're dooming this child, especially children. Like, it's one thing you talk about Bruce, whatever, I don't care. Like, I do care to a certain level. Like, I don't think we should be as a society affirming mental illness. My sister, who passed away a little bit over a month ago, she had some mental health issues. I think it would have been wild if I would have affirmed her mental illness. She suffered from schizophrenia. So if I'd have been like, oh no, yeah, exactly. Like, let's call them names and let's have them over for dinner. Like, that would be terrible. You don't affirm mental illness, but that's what we have done with people that are suffering from this. So that's separate though. That's adults. I'm saying ultimately with children, that is, to me, evil. And I think we're going to have a reckoning in this country where parents are going to have to deal with that weight that they destroyed their child that's now an adult. And I think it's going to be terrifying. And one last piece, and then we'll move on to something a little lighter that I think our audience will get a lot of enjoyment out of. The last piece is that you have to remember where this all comes from. All of this trans identity stuff is part of critical gender theory. It is a Marxist belief meant to bring about revolution. It's just the stick that the Marxists are using. Some of them use critical race theory. Some will use class. In this case, they are using gender to bring about their revolution. So just understand that that's the premise that's baked underneath all of this. And that's my final piece. Anything else you want to close on this topic? I know it got a little heavy talking about some very real stuff, but
it's fine. We got Joseph Schueth that messaged us. Are there any biological female girls that want to get into male locker rooms and male restrooms? Do you think is
No, I
that
think
my
it's-
wait a minute. Is that my tech? Maybe this is my new idea for dating. Instead of online dating, I just start barging into, I wanted to share this. This was the comment that I made to another guy online dating when he asked me why I was still single. Okay, people get to know me. I have a really sarcastic, and I do have oil field humor because I did work in the oil field. So AK, this was my response back to him when he asked me why I was still single. I was like, oh, I guess I haven't used the last tactic in my toolbox. I could just write a sign and stand along 494 and have it say homeless and single.
That'd be, hey, you get a lot of people stopping. I bet that might be stopping to kidnap you, but oh man.
Hey, I wouldn't be single any longer and I wouldn't be homeless. Not that I'm homeless, but that stumped him. Like he had no comeback for me on that one. And I was just like, how thick are people? I mean, don't anybody have a sense of humor anymore?
But here's the thing that Joseph's bringing up, and it's a very good point. Oftentimes in this conversation, it's like everyone's focused on the biological males in female spaces, right?
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, how many biological females are champing at the bit to play against biological males? It ain't very many. There are some,
No.
to be fair, but they're not winning state championships. They're not coming in first place, right? So listen, ultimately, this does come down to a biological reality. And truly, it's because biological males have neonatal testosterone from the time that a child, right, is genetically a boy, a biological male. When that happens in utero, at that time, testosterone starts flooding the baby. And that testosterone gives advantages over the course of life of that human that develops. So, but yeah, Joseph, you bring up a good point, because the issue isn't that biological females are competing against biological males and crushing them in competition. If it was, then we would have that conversation. So it really does come down to keeping biological males out of biological female spaces because of all those other inherent pieces. But yeah, it is interesting, because you have to ask yourself, well, why isn't it happening the other way? If you claim, because that's what some of these legislators say, there's no advantages. This is like one off, maybe one out of whatever wins something. It's like that's not the case actually at all. But why isn't it happening the other way? Why aren't there? Because do you know right now, Bella, biological females can play in the NBA. Do you know that? They can try out and they could make the team. You want to know how many ever have? 0. Because it ain't happening. They can't compete. They cannot compete. But it's open. Like right now, biological females could go and apply to be in the NBA and be on a NBA team, but never happened. So, so to make things a little bit lighter, have you at all heard about this, what I am calling the Vancening of America? Have you heard about it?
I have not.
All right. So, one of the things, if people will remember, that allowed President Trump to win his first time was what people called meme magic, right? It's this idea that President Donald Trump became a cultural force in the United States. People were making memes, people were sharing videos, edits, the whole 9 yards. And that was fantastic. It also happened in the second, not second, technically the third time that President Trump ran and won, I guess you could say as well. And that was like, he was doing all these podcasts and they called it the podcast presidency. But there's been this new phenomena that all these memes are appearing online just in the last week, that the Atlantic writes, wait, who's posting these unflattering JD Vance memes? The online right is trolling one of its own? And what's so funny about this? It's like these people at the Atlantic, they just don't get it. It's about having fun. Is it trolling JD Vance? Are some of the photos unflattering? Yes, that's the point, though. It's funny. And so you said you haven't seen any of these memes yet. So this is going to be funny for you, because I get to get a real, raw interaction from you. And we'll see like actually how funny it really is. Or if, I'm just like, a little child that, has poop and fart humor that I think is really, really funny. So let me get this rocked right here. All right. So the first one.
From Dumb and Dumber.
From Dumb and Dumber, right? So you're telling me there's a chance. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Lasan Al-Gaib. So this is JD Vance's face. This is from Dune. He's one of the leaders of the sand people. I don't know what they're actually called, from Dune. Now you might like this one.
Van Halen.
Vance Halen. you see all those faces?
You can tell how 80s I am. I've got all of this nailed down, and I haven't seen any of this before.
All right, now this one. This one's funny. Baron Vance. That's Baron from inauguration when he
Yep,
stood up. Yeah,
yep, yep.
Okay. JD Gump.
JD, I could have called that one. Forrest Gump.
Oh, this one's pretty good too. Now, do you know who that is?
Bernie.
Yeah, that's a Bernie meme.
Oh my God. You know what? I want to know, who is that kid? Like, she became so famous overnight. I hope
from
she
like
gets
15
royalty.
years ago. Yeah, with that weird face. Hold the pain, JD. It's like an old white guy, and he's like thumbing up, and yeah, no, that's a good one. Ooh, we got Vince Vance. That one's
Vince
okay.
Vaughn.
No. That's Vince McMahon, WWF.
Oh
no, this
Oh,
one's
this
really
one.
this was funny. JD yells at JD. oh no, this one's
See, that is a Match.com profile pic right there. And if you go 10 more pictures, he's gonna suddenly morph into 20-year-old fat old creepy white dude.
JD
White
Floyd.
dude.
That's hardcore.
Oh, there's the next dating profile. You hacked into my Match.com. These are the dudes that message me. Me love you long time. Go out for dinner now.
And then MySpace Tom.
Now there's the pervert picture.
The pervert picture.
Look at, he's got pervy look in his eyes.
I mean, that's our vice president. Come on.
No, I know, but that's not him because they photoshopped it.
Well, it's AI, but it's technically.
I mean,
JD
it is him, but they have okay.
JD Soprano.
Soprano.
Oh, this one's funny too.
Oh,
JD Trump. Well, so here's the thing. I find it to be highly entertaining and hilarious, the memification of JD Vance. And what's even better is that JD himself, he actually, jumped in on the trolling. He's laughing about it. And so this is one with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yep.
But he actually posted this himself. Let me see if I can. Yeah, see right there. So JD Vance got in on the fun. He posted a meme of himself from the look at this. There I go. And that's that. So
that's the meme that was used all over Facebook that says, when my conspiracy theory is actually proven correct.
Right.
And then I go, that was me.
Yes. Yeah.
That was me.
So again, this is just to be lighthearted. But the thing that's funny, it's like the left doesn't get it. Like that Atlantic
because
article,
you know what? Democrats do not have a sense of humor. They just don't. I know because I'm related to all of them.
All of your Democrat family members that have no sense of humor?
They don't.
Yeah, it is crazy though when you think about it. Like how, for me, it's like this is what's funny. I don't care who you put JD Vance on whose face, if it's a girl or whatever. It's funny, the memification. I also think this bodes well for JD's future. 2028, President Trump can't run again. JD Vance, I think, is going to be one of the top contenders. I don't see why he wouldn't run to be president.
Oh, because he'll be up against Tampon Tim.
What's funny about that is I was just having a conversation with someone about this. Some people said, like, oh, do you think, is Walz going to run again for another term for governor? And I'm like, yeah, because he wants to run for president. We all know that if
you were telling me this.
Oh, did I tell you this? Is this us having this conversation?
Yeah.
I also had this with someone else too. But it's like, if he doesn't run for governor and he's just nothing for 2 years and then starts running for president, I just don't think it will be as favorable for him. I think that he wants.
It's not going to be favorable, period. Mark my words.
Yeah. No, I don't think it will be either. But in Tim Walz's brain, in Democrats' brains, I think this is gearing up to be, and this isn't my original take. Other people have had it, and it makes perfect sense. So shout out first to Representative Max Reimer. I was on John Justice's show with him on Friday, and he was like, he can see the civil war right now forming between Gavin Newsom and and Tim Walz, because Tim Walz is taking the like, I'm going to double down on the Democrat policies that are not popular, right? Such as allowing biological males to compete against biological females. Whereas Gavin Newsom on Charlie Kirk's show said, like, basically, like, yeah, I don't think it's right. He then also backed and said, well, we also have to think about the children that are committing suicide at high rates because no one's affirming their transgender care, which is the opposite of what the studies show that we just talked about. But what do you think about that? Like in your kind of circles, JD Vance, he's representing on the Republican side, but on the Democrat side, between Gavin Newsom and Tim Walz, who do you think is the better candidate, or who we should fear more? Because it sounds like it's going to be one of those two for real.
I'm going to predict it's not going to be either one of them.
Really?
Yep. Here's why.
Who do you think? Yeah.
Well, I think Tim is delirious in the moment of where in the hell am I going to go? I think possibly deep down, he knows he got destroyed nationally. I think living in the moment, he's clearly a power delusional individual. So it's another power thing to say, yeah, I'm going to run for president in 2028. What's the reality? I mean, one of the biggest problems that he faced when Kamala picked him, nobody knew who the hell he was. And then once they started, outside of Minnesota, you didn't know who the hell Tim Walz was. And then try and look at the camera. Sure. Right. And then once nationally they got a hold of him and started sharing what a lying piece of scum he really is. And then he couldn't even stand composed to even help us possibly believe that he could have a leadership role because he was so scattered and he showed his true colors. I've said this, in time of crisis, you're going to see whether somebody is a leader or not. He is a babbling, perverted buffoon. I think that by the time that they're starting to look at 2028, I think we're going to see somebody even far more radical, because that's who has hijacked the Democrat Party. And unless they have some kind of wake up, and unless they start to see the writing on the wall, the far radicals will continue to pull that party to the further extreme, just like why they are on the transgender. And we'll probably have a very radical individual. And I don't think that they will have a chance in taking over or winning in 2028.
I mean, listen, I think that's a fair take. I also think that that's what the Democrats are likely going to do, because if they try and do this, like, I'm a moderate type of spin, the problem is they've already emboldened the far left progressives and Marxists within their party ranks. They've given them positions of power. And sure, you can maybe take 1 or 2 or 3 members of the squad out. AOC ain't losing anytime soon, right? Nope. There's Jasmine Crockett gal from Houston. Yeah, if a Republican can beat her, but listen, we're talking about Houston. It's a very densely populated area. It's hard for Republicans to win areas like that, right? And you also have Ayanna Pressley. You have Rashida Tlaib. I mean, you still have these progressive, far leftist, overt Marxists, and they're going to continue to grow in their ranks because they are the activist class. So if they turn their back, they truly turn their back on them because they've already given them power, they'll rip it down to the point that Democrats will truly become a minority party across the country. And so that's why I personally think they can't turn away. Maybe over the course of the next 40 years, they can slowly turn back. But that's the thing that I think that's the bed that they've made for themselves. And I'm glad to see that they did that, because I think that this country badly needed to see someone on the right, like President Trump and JD Vance and whomever might come after, be able to take this country back and just have, like President Trump said, what did he say? Radical common sense. That's what he called it. Radical common sense. And that's what we need. And also to have a common sense revolution in this country. Yes. And so if we can do that, and we can get people back on board, we can still disagree about how much should the cuts be and what should this look like. And ultimately that's what we are going to try and trend towards. Now, I do like to talk at least about one Minnesota specific topic. Before we move on, though, just any closing thoughts on JD Vancening? Do you find it funny? Do you
I
think it's
find it
lighthearted?
hilarious.
So in Minnesota, for those folks that have paid attention, when we first started this session, we were supposed to start the session on January 14th. Democrats decided that they were going to play this game where they believed that because they technically were going to have a 1-seat minority, that they were going to sit out and Governor Walz was going to quit call a special election in this race in 41B. That's the Roseville area. They were going to have a quick election. The Democrats were going to win, keep that seat, and then it would go back to like a 50-50 split. So they initially said, we're going to sit out. Well, turns out that Governor Walz, that act of him calling that special election so quick, was unconstitutional. The Minnesota State Supreme Court, who are all liberals, ruled against him. And so Democrats sat out for the first, basically, 3 weeks of session. And because of them sitting out, Republicans mounted a recall effort across this state. And right now, we are just days away from the fruits of that effort being revealed into the next step. Now, this is a multi-step process. Okay.
Now let's stop for a second.
Yeah.
Simplify this. Like I said to you earlier, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old and I don't know how to run a computer. For those listening, simplify what you're sharing with us. Thanks.
So basically, when the Democrats decided not to show up, literally to their job, Republicans said, based off of our state law, we should be able to initiate a recall petition, which means that the people basically sign off. They sign like literally a signature. And if you get a certain percentage of them, then you will have to call for a new election to be held that will then allow that current person being recalled to stand for another election. And it allows a Republican, obviously, in this case, it's a Democrat being recalled, to try and beat them. And the reason why this is so important is because right now, Republicans have a 1-vote majority. And so if Democrats can win this special election coming up this Tuesday, it will go back to a split 67-67. But in this recall petition campaign, if we can just get 1, 2, or hopefully even more of the closer elections where Democrats won, and you can get a recall and have a special election and they're put up on the ballot, and you just get to run these ads saying this Democrat didn't show up to work for 3 weeks and they collected a paycheck. Do you support that? I think 1 or 2 of them might fall, and then Republicans have a true majority. So in layman's terms, there is a process that is a little bit difficult, but right now we are basically at stop 2 of 4. And so we're waiting to find out from the Minnesota State Supreme Court whether or not the 29, and these names I'm scrolling by, these are all petitions that have been accepted by the Secretary of State, Steve Simon, that have then been sent to the Supreme Court. And they have 10 days from the time it's submitted to give an answer back on whether or not you can continue forward, which would then call basically there'd be an open session, like basically it'd be a public hearing for each one of these individuals that is had a petition signed and submitted to recall them. And then after that public hearing, it could take up to 10 months. Then you would actually call for a special election. And each one of these people, if successfully that petition is accepted by the Supreme Court, they could be up for another election. So this is amazing news, but we're going to find out this week if the Supreme Court, which what they're going to do is they're going to look at what were the reasons why the petition is being submitted. And the law is pretty straightforward, but it's malfeasance and nonfeasance. These are the 2 technical legal terms that were submitted by all of the people that signed off in each of these legislative districts, because you had to have at least 25 people, and some districts had like 200 people signed off, that said that all of these state reps committed malfeasance or misfeasance because they didn't show up to do their job. And why didn't they show up? Because they didn't want to lose political power. So this is where things are right now. It's just a quick update. I think this would be amazing if it goes forward. Now, I will say that step 3 is a very heavy very heavy lift. And step 3 is you have to collect 25% of signatures of the total registered voters in a legislative district. So just for quick math, let's say that there's 30,000 registered voters in a district, right? You have to collect at, half of that, which would be 7,500 signatures in order for then step 4, which is where you actually have a special election and that person has to stand for another election.
You might stand a better chance in going to see who, what we talked about last show, and say, please save Minnesota and come and investigate the hell out of Tampon Tim.
Yeah. Listen, I agree, but this is just it's a great move because it kind of speaks to the things we've talked about during the show about how far gone the Democrats have become, and by them taking this just bogus, listen, it was a radical stance for them to not show up to work for 23, 24 days and then get paid.
Were they showing support for all of the government employees that got the email to respond? I mean, what is that? That's their way of protesting and saying, oh, well, all of my fellow government employees, I'm standing in silent support that they got asked what the hell they're doing for their job, with that five question email that I love when Elon said, well, it was a password reset test. I want to give a shout out to Marjorie Holston, who I've got to meet in person, I believe only once. She shared her story on my podcast back in 2022 of her personal story about the loss of her mother at the hands of COVID and the handling of it. She's a lovely, lovely woman. And AK, she says, I'm enjoying the show. The Vance memes were great. We love you, Marjorie.
I love Marjorie.
I know.
Funny side Easter egg. I was an insurance agent for 8 years, and I actually insured a property of hers, and she also had referred one of her clients to me as well. So yeah, shout out to Marjorie. She's an amazing woman. Great family. Husband's awesome. Kids are awesome.
Marjorie, you got to come out to the barn. I see all your postings of your lovely mare. You got to come out and meet my lovely mare. Do you see that other message? It says show on screen, and I'm not sure who it's coming in from.
So it says, will the work of Pam Bondi's DOJ and DOJ provide the transparency needed to demonstrate to independent voters the corruption by Walz, Newscomb, and countless other rogues? Yeah, we kind of talked about this last show, and that came from Joseph as well. Earlier commenter, that's what we believe, right, Bella, is that ultimately all of this fraud, waste, and abuse in conjunction with people being charged, it's great to find all the waste, fraud, and abuse it is, but the people that clearly violated the law and you have at least enough evidence to charge them, we need to see people be held criminally liable for their actions. It can't just be about exposing it and cutting it off. That's amazing. Obviously, that needs to happen. But yeah, I do think that Pam Bondi has the wherewithal to be able to bring charges. And if not, then we can hold her accountable, and she probably won't last very long. I think that the people are going to demand that accountability happens in the form of people that violated the law. I'm not saying go after people to make an example, but I'm saying I think the people want to know. And if you don't have an answer where you can say, well, okay, we investigated, and because of X, Y, and Z, we can't bring criminal charges. The people need to know that. But if that doesn't happen and charges aren't brought, I don't think Pam Bondi will last very long. I hope she does, because she's an amazing person. I've had great conversations.
I completely agree.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I think ultimately, Joseph, is that it will help a lot of independent people to see the Democrats lighting their hair on fire to try and keep the fraud going, I guess. That's why President Trump was so powerful during his joint address, when he was ripping through line by line all of the insane things. And again, if you watch the last 2 episodes, Bella, we talked about, condoms to Congo or to Uganda and to
Sesame Street,
right, to Hamas
Iran,
and to Gaza. Mm-hmm. They're sending these condoms everywhere. It's pretty wild. I mean, I get why. It's because they're anti-human life and all that good stuff. But at the
They
end of
never
the day.
sent condoms anywhere.
But ultimately, listen,
Oh,
I think that's where the people are going to really come into their own when they see all of this as it's continuing to be exposed. And the Democrats, they're going wild, man. I mean, they really are. The last saving grace that the Democrats have right now is they have, some of these more liberal federal judges that are trying to stop them. And that's why before the Supreme Court, we got a ruling that kind of sucked. But I think that's not the full ruling. You have to actually have a larger case be heard by the Supreme Court of the United States. But initially, they allowed certain monies to be unfrozen in opposition to what the Trump administration and what the American people, I believe, want, which is they want this funding to be frozen that's going to ridiculous things. But it was a small portion of money relative to the larger scheme, like $2 billion or whatever. But ultimately, yeah, I do think that people are seeing through this. Now, I know that we're kind of coming up against it. We're already at an hour. We don't want to go too wild. I think we can bring some of these other topics, such as the tariffs, and having a deeper conversation about that on a future show. What do you think, Bella?
I think we close it up here because we might just start rambling, or I continue on with my Match.com nightmare stories. When you mention about, I've always said it's all fun and games until I'm calling you from the trunk with duct tape around my ankles and wrists. And I mean, I could go on and on. So trust me, I'll deliver the humor. That's my passion in bringing to this show, is being entertaining, and a lot of it is just purely self-deprecating humor. I mean, I literally did offer that I would stand on 494 with that sign. Can you imagine the accidents and traffic jam that I would get standing out there with the homeless and single road sign?
Yeah, no, of course it would make national news. They're like, who's this beautiful woman standing on the road? Someone must save her.
Joseph says many people don't just want charges brought, people want convictions. Well, of course we do, but we also have to clean house at our Department of Justice, and we're just getting started, though. I listened to Fox with Fox News this morning with Trump and Maria Bartoloma talking about how the economy is just getting going, and we'll save tariffs for next week because I'm sure we'll be able to talk about some of the impacts of it. Your closing thoughts, and then AKA I'll wrap up out of here.
Yeah, so my closing thoughts, ultimately, I think that this country is going through what President Trump described as a common sense revolution. And it's really that simple. So for people that watch this show, make sure that you keep the faith in regards to just not jumping down the throats and saying we need this right now. It's only been not even 2 months. Okay. President Trump was sworn in on January 20th. It is March 9th. And I said January like a little child. I don't know why I said it like that. But it's not even been 2 months. So chill out a little bit, right?
Yep.
Keep the faith in regards to President Trump has so far shown promises made, promises kept. On top of that, we need to continue to push back because there is a narrative that has some legs that Democrats are running on, where they're doing this thing where they're holding town halls against Congress people by this group called Indivisible. And then they're getting 200-300 people to show up and say, why won't this congressperson show up? Are they afraid? And they're using this tactic all across the country. And they're saying, oh, look at all these Republicans. They're too afraid to show up. And it's having an impact to the point that I've actually heard from people in political circles that are like, is this really a big deal? So we need to push back against that, right? This is a radical leftist group that is just trying to stop President Trump's agenda. And ultimately, that's what this is about. All of the crying and gnashing and all of these moves by Democrats are because they want the gravy train to continue, to be able to launder money and kick back to their friends and enrich themselves. But all of that stops. So we just have to continue to support President Trump. We can have debates about it. We can have conversations. We can have dialogue. But don't just say oh, Trump, he's, game over, like Pam Bondi's done or Kash Patel, because they're not moving to the speed that you want. But just keep on pushing forward. Keep on talking about the truth. Keep on bringing examples of all the things that have been found by Doge, sharing the memes. Make sure you follow this page Red, Right, and Real. That's basically where we're at everywhere. You can follow me on X, Instagram, Facebook at Real AK Kamara. You can follow me on TikTok and on Parler at AK Kamara. Bella D'Angelo, you take her away and tell folks where they can find you.
I'm going to have to clear up my X account. I am on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, BellaD'Angelo.com or Bella D'Angelo, Bella D'Angelo on Facebook. It's DANGELO. However, my main page is primarily me and that big, beautiful mare, which I will be releasing healinghottie.com, talking about my journey of equine therapy and that amazing gentle giant that I had the privilege of riding every night. I'm gonna echo what you had to say. This is the time of common sense. Americans for so long sat back and listened to all of the lies, the self-deprecating, self-bloviating that was going on. Meanwhile, we can't afford to live. We can't afford our groceries, and our kids can't even afford or understand how to move out of their parents' houses, let alone hopes and dreams. And then we watch the other party as they fight for transgenderism and open borders and just insanity. And we said enough is enough. And that's why I'm very thankful and glad to still be here fighting the good fight. Joseph thanked us for both fighting the good fight. Keep up the humor, he says. No problem. The humor is endless. All you have to do, you want a good laugh, AK? Go sign up for a Match.com account, okay? Photoshop. Do a Vance meme. Do an AK Vance profile picture. No, to really get the full experience.
I'll live through you. You know, you'll be my online dating experience.
Yeah,
it'll be through the eyes and experiences of Bella D'Angelo.
Well, I the only reason I continued signing on because I figured it will bring comedic humor in a much needed days and times on this show. But with that being said, I'm going to say, God bless America, ciao, and good night. Close us out, AK.
Are you fired up? Then take action. Copy the link to this episode and text it to one friend who needs to hear it. Support us where you found us by liking and subscribing for future content.